I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with author Vern Thibedeau about his amazing book called The Other Side of the Door. The author uses his intimate knowledge of the prison system to paint a vivid picture of life in a Canadian federal maximum security prison. He is a retired correctional officer who has experienced the harrowing realities of prison life, including being held hostage and enduring physical assaults. We are delighted to have Vern join us today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Inks and Bindings for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Vern, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Well, you're quite welcome. I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to talking to you as well. This is quite a book. The Other Side of the Door is a place we don't want to be necessarily if the doors happen to be made of steel bars, right?
Right, you are. Some of them are solid steel, but they're steel, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a subculture, prison. I have actually spent some time in prison, not as a prisoner, but as a journalist. And it always amazed me that these men, in the case of the prison I was in, are, shackled as they move from cell to cell, that the correctional officers like yourself aren't even armed, and yet they're able to survive in this system. And I was told at the time, if you're going to survive, you have to do three things. You have to be firm, fair, and consistent. So basically, you have to earn the respect of the inmates behind the bars. Is that true?
That's pretty close to that. You sort of you want to get their mind you, they hate you and everything, but if they respect you, it's safer for everybody actually. And one thing, one thing I should mention, the one about the prison and prisoners and all that, and the life of a correctional officer. My first book was The Door, and it's about the prison system and whatnot. The Other Side of the Door is more from the inmate's point of view.
Gotcha. So the first book looked at the correctional officer and what his perspective was. This looks at, through a novel, what it's like to be on the other side of the door. And so you're in an elite club when you're on one side of the door and they're on the other, in a way, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah.
It's a different life altogether.
Tell the folks at home, give them an overview of what your book, The Other Side of the Door, is all about.
Well, The Other Side of the Door, like I said, is my second book. And I just sort of had a feeling that since I wrote about correctional staff and how they worked and everything, and it's just sort of on my mind that I should try to do a book about from an inmate's point of view. So I did have to say it was fiction because it's about inmates and their lives and what they think and all that. But it's the incidents in it pretty well all did happen. So it's just sort of, that's what it is, sort of about the life of prisons, what they go through and the mental problems they have. And I just thought it'd be fair to do that for them. And it seemed to work all right. I've had a couple inmates say it was understandable. They said it was a good read, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I said at the beginning, this is a subculture that few people know anything about at all other than what they see in movies. And what they see in movies really isn't how it is, right?
That's right. It's really, it isn't. Not hardly at all. It's and the prison, there's not a lot. People, of course, they don't know a lot about how prisons work because there's never hardly any released to the public about what happened or what goes on inside. It's almost unknown. People don't realize the staff walk around unarmed and not even a nightstick unless they're in an armed post that's solid and inmates can't get into them. And I'm involved with, even now at Kingston Penitentiary, they have tours through there, and I'm involved with them. I do a talk, usually in the Dome or wherever, and people are really surprised when they find out, staff walk around amongst a couple hundred inmates with no weapons, no nothing, and some other stuff that goes on there. They're literally amazed by it.
Yeah.
So, and my book, of course, I was one of the unlucky ones. Like I was punched out of a hostage a couple of times, once by a knife and once by a handgun, and that's mainly why I wrote. I just wanted people to know what it's like working inside those places.
Tell us a little bit about your experience being held hostage.
Well, it was kind of weird. There wasn't much put out about it. Anyway, we're on an escort. I think there's three, a driver and two of us, and we're taking, I can't remember how many inmates. It was quite a while ago, about 5, 6 inmates to downtown to the hospital. And one of the inmates pulled a gun, fired a round off in through the windshield, or hit the windshield, and took us all the way from Kingston to Ottawa and tied us up and took off. And he ended up shooting I think he shot one police officer, 1 or 2 police officers before they caught him. And my wife, of course, been married. Well, we've been married 60 years now. We weren't 60 years back then, but my wife didn't know anything about it till the next door neighbor came over and knocked on the door and asked, my wife's name is Sheila, and asked her, she said, "Oh, are you okay?" And Sheila said, "Well, yeah, I'm just vacuuming or something." "And why?" And she said, "Well, Vern, he's a hostage, he's missing." And my wife said, "Well, what do you mean he's at work?" No, he's missing. And she didn't even know. They didn't even bother notifying our wives that we were missing, we were gone. And neighbor, she just found out about it because they put it on the news with our names and everything, but didn't notify the family.
Horrible.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah, a terrible way, a shocking way for your wife to find out, although I guess there's no good way to find out your husband's been taken hostage. How did this inmate happen to get his hands on a handgun?
Well, it never did come out technically. I was told, or we were told unofficially, it's just almost like a rumor that a correctional officer brought it in for him. Now, I don't know for pay or what, but this particular officer that they were saying did this, we never saw him anymore. By the time we came back, we were gone all that day and that night, and then we came back to work in late that night. But nobody ever saw that guy again. He was gone. So we kind of think maybe that rumor was true.
Right.
He was a regular correctional officer, and he just disappeared.
Crazy.
So, some of it's just nuts.
Yeah.
That's the only way to put it. Yeah. And I'm still, I retired in 1999. And I still, if I'm walking around, like with my wife, or we're walking around the mall, I'm always looking up high and down, and I can't sit somewhere in a restaurant or anywhere without my back up against a wall or something that people can't walk behind me. I just still can't do it.
Now, do you fear that one of the inmates will come and get you, or are you just distrustful of people having lived through what you've lived through?
It's just kind of distrustful.
Yeah.
Because I bumped into some inmates, the odd inmate, and if they do acknowledge you, they just sort of nod or wave some. And I had a couple inmates say, "Oh, Mr. Thibedeau, how you doing?" And I'm doing fine, but it's just the body just won't let you take a chance on somebody coming up behind you, I guess. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you, does it change the way you view life? And I guess you've answered that question before I asked it. And the answer is yes. I mean, because you've seen the worst of the worst gathered together. I mean, if we come across one murderer in our life, that's a lot. I've sat in courtrooms looking at murderers on the witness stand, and it's quite chilling. And you're coming to work every day, and there might be a half a dozen murderers there. And
well, yeah, at least a half a dozen.
yeah, yeah. I was underestimating. I didn't want to exaggerate,
Yeah,
but
true.
yeah, you're surrounded by killers who
Yeah,
would, it's a different life.
yeah, and on top of that too, there's the suicide, of course. Suicide, the numbers of suicide quite high.
Mm.
So you go into work and you don't know if you're going to maybe sometime during your shift find a body either hanging or slacked up or murdered. That happens too in there, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the different. Actually, that's kind of why I took the job. We're from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and I'd never been in a jail or a prison, but someone contacted me and said they're coming into the Sioux couple. They're doing interviewing for staff and to join the pen service, and they want to know if I wanted to go in for the interview. So I did anyway, and had the interview. And when I was leaving, they told me the interviewer said, "Well, you'll know in about 10 days. We'll send a letter one way or the other." So when I walked out, the fella in the employment office was standing outside listening at the door, I guess, because he said, "Vern," he said, "you better talk to your wife, make a decision. You will be, there's no doubt in my mind they're going to ask you to join the pen service."
Hmm.
So he was right, they did. And I took the job mostly because of something different.
Hmm.
Just, it's something, I went to teacher's college, got my teaching license. I operated heavy duty equipment and bulldozers and all that. And this prison thing just seemed something different. So we thought we'd give it a try. And yeah, I did it for 26 years.
Yeah. That's giving it a try. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it has fueled two books, which we're grateful for because they give you a unique insight into the prison system. One is called The Door. The other is called The Other Side of the Door. One takes the perspective of a corrections officer. The other takes the perspective of an inmate at a federal maximum security prison where Vern Thibedeau, the author we're speaking with today, served for more than 2 decades. Vern, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Pleasure is all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.